Welcome to the Spawn on Me podcast. This is your host, Kahlief Adams. This is episode 327 of our show. What the deal be, everybody in Chicago? I hope you are all doing well. Hope you're washing your hands, washing your booties, making sure that you are okay out in this new coronavirus land that we live in. I hope that you're all doing okay. If you did miss our show, our last episode, which we dropped on Tuesday of this week, you missed a wonderful conversation around all the teraflops that can be flopped in the world, with all the conversations from Sony dropping their PS5 news and Xbox dropping their news as well. And also we talked about, of course, the coronavirus and how it's affecting the world of gaming and everyone else in it. I am really excited about today's show. Tonight's show is going to be amazingly dope because we have a really cool set of guests rocking with us this week. If you missed the announcement, there was one that went out on all the feeds today talking about, if you're familiar with, I should say, the show Insecure on HBO, Issa Rae, and all the wonderful work that she's been doing. The two ladies that we have on the show with us tonight representing Glow Up Games are making a mobile game around that show. Give a huge round of applause to Dr. Mitu Khandaker and also Latoya Peterson rocking from Glow Up Games. How are you all doing today? How is everything going?
Good. Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, it's super exciting to be here, and it's been a long day for us. So yeah, but I'm super happy to come and hang out with you all tonight.
Thank you again for rocking.
And,
Go ahead, Latoya. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. I was just going to say, always great to be back on Spawn on Me. It was very fun to talk to y'all a couple years ago when I was back at ESPN, and now we have glowed up. So we're
yes.
Look at where life is now, Latoya.
I know. It's a whole other life. Now, I mean, coronavirus notwithstanding, it's a whole other life.
Yeah. Absolutely. Me too. I apologize in advance. I botched your last name. Can you pronounce it again for me?
Yeah, Khandaker.
Khandaker. Thank you so very much. I appreciate you for correcting me on that, because I botched it. I was practicing too, and then I fucked it up.
It's all good.
Yes.
All good. I mean, if you want to be really real about it, like, it's the very anglicized pronunciation of my name anyway. Like,
how would you actually pronounce it? Because it's important.
Well, this is the thing. So when my dad migrated from Bangladesh to the UK, he actually botched the way that it should be anglicized. So really, it should be Khandaker. But he spelled it in a way that wouldn't make sense for it to be anglicized. And then, like, my mum was like, no, white people can't pronounce that. So it became Khandaker.
Because I spent like a good 10 minutes trying to make sure that I got it right, botched it. And then I was like, the way that you're actually supposed to say it was the way in my head that I had it. So I'm like, damn it.
No, so I am not too precious about the pronunciations of my name, because I usually go by Mitu as well. Rather, I would say like 50% of people say Mitu or Mitu. Like, so, but also the actual sound of it is somewhere in between the two, because it's like Mitu, which is not a sound that exists. So anyway. So anglicization of names. Hi.
Yeah, right. We should talk. Speaking of games that could be made about that, right? It's like about things that can be made into actual games and things like that. But thank you both again for coming onto the show, having a amazingly busy week with the information about your game showing up in numerous publications. The Root, Wired, all those things. I want to get to that in a minute, but I want to go back a step and talk about the wonderful things that both of you have been doing, and your counterpart, your co-founder as well, who has done so much good in this space. And both of you, all three of you, having such wonderful pedigrees within this industry. I want to go through some of the things that you already have worked on, give a little bit of background about how you got into games. For the folks that didn't see your first appearance, Latoya, they may not have caught the wonderfulness that happened on that first show. So Mitu, I want to go to you first and talk about, where you started this process, what's it been like so far, and what's been the things you've been bringing to the table over the past couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in and around the game space for well over a decade now. Like, I've been someone who makes indie games. My first games related startup was actually, and not a lot of people know about this, but it was actually 11 years ago. I started a location based games company. So I was like out in Silicon Valley for a year. This is when like Foursquare and Gowalla and all that stuff was blowing up. So I actually made a game layer that goes on top of it. So I was like doing stuff around that. I was also at the same time as I was doing my gaming PhD. So I actually have a doctorate now in designing games for VR and immersive technology in general. I also, I've done a ton of work sort of consulting on games. I specialize a lot on the sort of compelling character interactions and AI side of things. So I started a company with a few other people called Spirit AI a few years ago. So that was my previous company before starting Glow Up. And, we did a lot of things around cool problems like using AI to try to detect like toxic language in games communities and things like that. So, it's been an interesting journey, but I think for me, as someone who's been kind of a vocal advocate in the industry for bringing in more diverse voices, for being more inclusive, I've been on the board of GDC on the advocacy track for the last 5 years. I run the advocacy micro talks there. I actually did a rant in 2013 about race representation in games when a ton of us weren't talking about it. I think Latoya was talking about it then.
Yeah.
And,
five of us.
Yeah.
I know. Let's say there were not many of us talking about this stuff. And I remember at the time I was getting frustrated because that was the time when there were thankfully more conversations around like gender representation. But I was like, that's great, but what about race? Right. So, but yeah, for me, it's just made a lot of sense that to start Glow Up Games, because it's really been just a part of everything I believe in that games should be, that we need to be pushing this kind of work. I've also been a professor at NYU for the last 5 years, so I teach game design there. But I just wanted to be out there doing commercial work, which is about bringing in more diverse voices and telling stories about us. And that's when I reached out to Latoya.
Yeah. Latoya, dig into, for the folks who don't know, some of your background in the game space as well.
Oh, absolutely. So I've always called myself kind of games adjacent. So I was a gamer, but also a journalist, not a gaming journalist, like these separate things. I was in newsrooms. I was working for Al Jazeera. I was working for Fusion. I just came out of ESPN. And so all of those things were happening before. But before that, I ran a blog called Racialicious, which is about race and pop culture. And occasionally we would publish stuff about video games and people would go nuts because we were not talking about race in video games almost at all. So it's funny because Mitu did her rant in 2013 at GDC. 2012, was it 2012 or God, it might be 2011. But me, Naomi Clark, and Ngai Kroll did a talk at South by Southwest Screen Burn called You Got Your Social Justice in My Video Games, right? And this is before the current world where everybody gave a talk, we talked about it, everyone had a beer, nothing happened. It was everything was over, stayed in the room, we were fine. So we gave this talk and we were look at racial representations in video games. And I gave the stat that, really stuck with a lot of people where I was like, look, I've been playing games for, at that time, 25 years, now 30 years. 30 years I have been gaming. And if I want to play as a Black female character, at the time I did the talk, I was like, I have 12 options. And then, you put that on the internet. They're like, that can't be true. So everybody's fact checking and trying to figure stuff out. Yeah, unfortunately it was true. I forgot one person, but we're also counting Fran the Vieira, who's just brown skinned and a bunny alien. So, but I mean, it was just that bad. We didn't have anything. There was a woman, I think, from Gameheads who did an article in Quartz last year, so 2019. And now the number is 19. It's not that much better. It's just getting worse. So I've been talking about this for ages, knew a bunch of folks, raised some hell, wrote about games as often as I could. And let's see, I came on to Spawn on Me. That's right. I came on to Spawn on Me because I had started at ESPN. I'm not really into sports. So that was not the job I thought I was going into. It was the whole thing of how I got there. But I show up at ESPN and, I see this joke. I was like, don't ask me about sports. Ask me about video games. That's all I know. And they were like, esports. And I was like, I don't know anything about that either. Let's try. So they had me write this piece for ESPN, the magazine, about, just because I think there was just no female representation in the esports issue. And they were just like, is there a woman that knows anything about games that can write? So I ended up writing The Legend of Girl Gamer, did that piece. So it turns out all the esports team knew me before I came to ESPN. So like day 2 on the job, they were like, so can we talk about esports, Latoya?
Nice.
And that led to a bunch of really fun assignments. The crew there is really awesome and I miss them dearly. But I wrote one piece in particular after reporting for like 6 months. And it was literally me just being like, so why were Black kids going pro in esports, which is the title of the piece. Very direct. And I was like, who's going to read this? 2 years later, I'm still getting tweets and calls about that piece. People still want to have conversations about it. I also covered the first NBA 2K draft, stuff like that. So it's a really interesting collision of interest. And I felt like I was just getting pushed further and further into gaming. Also, while I was at Disney, I did the AR/VR group. And so I was very interested in the future of television, and particularly around like spatial computing and like what games can kind of teach journalism and media. So I started talking to Mitu more and more. Disney added me to their AI ML working group. So artificial intelligence was brand new for me, not so much for Mitu. So I started calling her more about that.
Yeah.
And then when I was like, oh, I think it's about time for me to leave ESPN and figure out what's next for me. And Mitu was like, let's start a games company. And I did not know.
I think it was the time that you and I, because I think, when I moved to New York to teach at the NYU Game Center, that's when like Latoya and I became like real life friends, because previously we knew each other on social media.
Yes.
But then we really started talking more when Latoya was working on this cool project called AI in the Trap.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot I did that. It's been this much of a year.
Your dopeness is so vast that you're forgetting projects that you worked on.
No, I'm like literally, it was the 1-year anniversary deploying my first neural network like 2 days ago. And it feels like light years have happened between like that event and this. Yeah, so AI in the Trap. So I called Mitu because Mitu was working on AI and characterization.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, man, I had this idea that I can't get out of my head. I was at this conference at Data and Society. And I just kept thinking, like I was listening to The Weeknd and Future. And I was like, who in AI is repping for the low life? Like what is what's going on? So we started talking about like what it would be like to do like an artificially generated trap rapper. How would that look? How would that sound? Should it be something that we reveal over time? Should we just debut them on SoundCloud and let people make their own ideas? And at this time, like when Lil Michaela and all them were becoming popular, so the CGI influencer, right? But they have a specific look and this talk, and we wanted to really make this like commentary, particularly around like the ways in which society privileges certain narratives and certain types of perspectives and not others. And so the whole idea is that if we looked at the guidelines of the trap and not necessarily the guidelines of Silicon Valley, what type of computing ecosystem, what type of system would we have? And then, I mean, just, let's do AI to make it fly, put some rap on it. Like, let's just do other stuff. So we started talking a lot about that project. And that's when we were like, we should probably just collab on something bigger. And here we are.
So how did Tara get into, Tara Mustafa come into
play? So Tara is amazing. Like she, and again, she's one of these like just badass women who have been around the space for a long time. Like she's been in the game space for over 15 years. Yeah. She's worked in a lot of AAA studios. She's worked at like Microsoft and EA, and she's worked on like just all kinds of different projects, shipped over 10 games. And she and I got connected through another mutual female friend who was actually, Bryna Dabby Smith of Brass Lion. So,
shout out to Brass Lion.
Shout out to Brass Lion. It's a small world.
Yeah.
Especially if you're brown.
Yeah.
But so Bryna connected me and Tara because she was just like, you two would like get along really well, and we did. And I invited Tara to give a talk on the advocacy micro talks at GDC, and that's when we got to know each other a bit better. But I think for us, like as you can hopefully hear, like the three of us have had just tons of experience around the space for a long time, and we were just like, for various reasons, just at a particular point in our careers where we were like, okay, what are we doing next? Like we could do something where we are sort of going through doing the easier work, you know what I mean? Or we could go on this journey to really try and like change the landscape for what diverse storytelling means and start a company and like just, do the thing, walk the walk.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing I love and absolutely adore is the fact that you have all of you who are so accomplished in your fields becoming the dopeness of Glow Up Games Voltron right now and like forming this power team. That's a great sports analogy, forming this power team bringing all your talents to the forefront. When you decided to start Glow Up, when did you kind of know exactly what the ethos of what you were trying to build was going to be? Because it's always difficult to kind of to figure out what that special sauce and how you kind of want to maneuver throughout the space is going to be. Like, it's always kind of easier to figure out, like, oh, you do that really well and you do that really well, and let's see how you can combine that together. But then you have to then mix that all together and figure out, like, what's our North Star going to be for our company? What's that going to look like for the future? When did you kind of come up with that and kind of think about the process of coming together and actually making a studio? Because that's not easy at all to do.
It's not easy to do. Yeah, Latoya, do you want to field that one?
Oh my God, sure. I'm so lucky to be with Mitu and Tara, who are games industry veterans, like, got this on lock. We got one coder, we've got a power producer and game developer. And then you got me, who was like, okay, I do the business stuff, but what? I've done corporate licensing, I've done Hollywood. I don't know what any of this stuff is. So when we started talking about the studio and what we wanted and what we looked out into the world and did not see, I think the first thing we started with was, storytelling. It's things that reflect people that look like us, right? We're 3 women of color. We've been playing for, I don't even want to say collectively because that makes me just feel old. So I'm not going to say how long.
Let's not say that number.
That number is a big number. We're getting up there. So I'm like, no, we're not going to talk about that. Septuagenarian gamers. But we've been playing for so long, and for all of us to have never really been able to play as someone that looks like us or sounds like us or presents that way has just been this kind of stick for a long time. Like, it's like, is my story not worth playing? Is my story not compelling to you? And, like, one of the things in the talk that we did with Naomi and Engai is, like, you can play so many non-human characters, right? So it's like, oh, you can totally identify this alien or this spore or this tree or this alien, like another alien, whatever this might be. But a woman of color just seems too difficult for us to get mainstream viewers into. So we went, okay, no, we don't want to do that. 2, the types of stories we loved and wanted to see in games and wanted to see adapted or do different things just weren't happening for some reason, right? Yeah. Like, we're all fans of, sci-fi, Octavia Butler, amazing fantasy series. There's so many things that we love that we are just not seeing. We're just like, okay. And, you're waiting and waiting. Like, is there going to be an adaptation of this? No. We can get magicians, but we can't get that, right?
Right.
So thinking about that as well, we went, okay, that's not what we want. And then, Tara has this amazing stat that still blows my mind, honestly, when I think about it, where she's been in the industry for 15 years. And again, respect on her name, let's just say 5 years, you're an industry veteran. She's been hanging for 15. That is serious. And in those 15 years, she's never had a female manager.
Wow.
And we were just like, oh my God, like, that is intense. And to think about that too, like, what does that say? Like, the games industry is 20% women, right? And they don't break it out by C-suite. So clearly less of us. Like, how many women heads can you think of off the top of your head that are running major studios?
Like,
and then from there, how many? Can you think of any?
Like Robin Hunicke.
Robin, Emily Greer,
Bonnie Ross, maybe.
Bonnie Ross. Yeah, there's like, you can count those women on like 2 hands, right? Like, there's,
Yeah. I mean, you can count them. Then let's go into women of color, right? Let's go in. And particularly African Americans, where the last IGDA survey, we are less than 3% of the industry. Sometimes we're less than 1. It just depends on who took the survey.
Yeah.
And you're just like who is here? So all of those things kind of combined. We were like, okay, what is the ethos of what we want to make? What is the impact we want to make on the world? What are the stories that we want to tell? And then I think, Mitu, you came up with a really great framing for kind of like this idea of joy and like the types of things that are antithetical from a gaming perspective, where studios kind of assume there has to be crunch or assume that you kind of have to be miserable to pay your dues to do something. So you want to talk about that part?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things from a culture perspective that, Latoya's touching on there that we wanted to make sure that we're addressing. So one of them is, absolutely. Like, how do we make room for people in all kinds of life situations to thrive? So obviously the thing about crunch culture, it's bad, obviously, but it also only makes room for people in very specific life situations, like, not people who are like, perhaps young and single and don't have kids to worry about, things like that, right? So, trying to make room for all kinds of life experiences. But then secondly as well, For us as a studio, actually, I don't think we've talked about this widely too much, but mentorship is actually a really key component of the studio. So, I'm lucky enough to be a professor at the NYU Game Center. So, we currently have 2 interns from NYU who are just amazing. And we've also previously partnered with, so Tara actually started the first women-focused game dev bootcamp called Code Cover. So we had those folks actually do a little bit of prototyping with us, because often it really is just about, getting marginalized folks that experience and getting them in the door and getting them the mentorship and resources that, let's face it, people who are not marginalized, like people in the mainstream, straight white cis dudes, let's be frank, have that access to those networks in other ways. So for us, it really is about making sure that we're creating opportunities for folks. Because the 3 of us, we've we've had our successes, we've made it to where we are, but we want to make sure that we're helping others up with us as well.
Yeah, I love that as being a part of just the kind of foundation of what you're doing with Glow Up Games, because that's so important. And it is the thing that we all know is true, right? It's it's still very sad to say that just seeing the person that you want to emulate and seeing them do the thing is just that super initial step to making sure that people can kind of get there. But it is fantastic to hear that is a huge part of, what you're trying to do in the space as a team and as a company. When you first kind of decided that this was going to be the outfit that you were going to pull in, when did you what did you first kind of think about as terms of your first project? When you were all right, so we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of things, we have a lot of stories that aren't being shared and told, and you landed on one of the biggest IPs on the planet, which we're going to talk about after the break. But I'm curious about what was the first game that you all kind of sat down and brainstormed around? Was it this one, or was it something else?
We were kind of just talking about various different things. We were very much in that kind of pre sort of prototyping kind of pre-production kind of phase of just we were just it wasn't even the idea of Glow Up in some ways wasn't even 100% solidified, because we were hey, it was more me and Latoya and Tara as well, just sort of shooting around ideas and saying, okay, what is the thing we could work on? Yeah. And just it so happened, and this is how life works out sometimes, that the opportunity to work on Insecure came up during that time.
Huh. Wow. That's talk about something that just to pull the J from 3 and get that to swish in terms of your first project out of the gate. That's pretty damn huge. And once because once we had that first initial conversation, when you reached out Mitu about rocking on the show, and then you told me what the project was, you should have seen the look on my face. My face was oh shit, wow, how the hell did that wind up coming out of the gate as the first things you're gonna do? We're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna take a quick 30-second break, let everybody get some water, let the folks at home figure out what they need to do to get themselves together, give them time to do their 20 seconds of washing their hands. And then we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Spawn Me podcast, episode 327 of our show. If you missed the first half of the show, you are bugging. You need to go figure your lives out. You need to go back to the beginning parts of the show and listen to all the conversations that we have right there. Right now, we're rocking with 2 of the members of Glow Up Games, talking about their mobile game that's going to be dropping, I hope, really, really soon, or, at least in the not too distant future, around the world of Insecure, HBO's Insecure. And what I'm really excited about is a couple of things, because as a person who kind of got into Insecure fairly late, because I was slow on the ball and didn't do what I was supposed to be doing, when everybody else was like, yo, Lawrence Hive is no joke. What the heck's going on? Easter Hive is no joke.
Oh, we can get into this.
So, yeah, we got to talk about that. But one of the things that
Tara is not on attack. Let's put that out there.
It's true.
Oh, really?
Over here, yes.
It's a continuing problem.
Stand Daniel all day.
Oh my god. Okay. So
she changed our Slack bot, yo. Our Slack. You say Daniel pops up a heart. This is how deep this is going right now.
Okay, so the folks at home who don't know what Insecure is, I don't know how you're listening to Spawn on Me and don't know, but for our white audience, the folks who don't know about Insecure, it is this wonderful tale of all these characters living their lives in LA, being young, having fun, trying to figure out what's going on in the world and going through those growing pains. And it is a huge, huge show. Like, it is one of the biggest HBO shows that's been produced in a very long time, that features, especially because it's full of Black people doing fantastic work. What was the day that you pitched that to HBO and was like, yo, I have this idea for a game that I want to make, and it involves an IP that you have and you're holding on to? What was that conversation like when you kind of went to the Insecure folks and was like, we want to do this, the HBO folks as well?
Yeah, so the way it sort of happened, I got connected with, and, shout out to at HBO, Will Price, who is the director of digital licensing. He has held it down for us since the beginning. He's just
100%.
been such
100.
a great advocate for Glow Up. And, Will and I just had a conversation early on because he'd heard through the grapevine that Glow Up Games was a thing, that it was starting. And, HBO had a lot of success with the Game of Thrones licensed games, of course. And, those have been really great. And, he and I were talking about, what we're doing with Glow Up and everything. And, this is the fact that the HBO actually, and they're actually happy to make this known, like, they are actually very open for indie developers to approach them with sort of ideas to license some of their properties for games. Like, that's something they're very open to doing. So Will and I had just had this amazing conversation, and he was really talking about how, hey, Insecure would be an amazing show to do a game around because, as you said, it's super popular. Mm-hmm. Like, it's really, really popular, like, especially in terms of social engagement. As we all know, like, Twitter just lights up when there's an episode on, right? Like, that's something that happens. So we were talking about it, and it just struck us at Glow Up immediately that, we love the show. We're huge fans of it. Fans of Issa and everything that she's been on in her journey since Awkward Black Girl. And, the story of Insecure, because it's about these young people trying to find their way through life, it lends itself to this kind of life sim, narrative-based game, very easy. So we were super excited about that. We also, immediately, as we were talking about all of this, we were, what stands out in Insecure is the fact that she will rap at her mirror bitch, right? That's something that she does. It's super relatable. Yep. It's awkward and relatable and charming and amazing. And, we were just like, hey, wouldn't it be amazing if you, that's a mechanic in the game where you get to do that and you get to create rhymes to hype yourself up to do other things in the narrative. So that's basically what our that's how it all went, and everything just kind of fell into place after that. Yeah.
It's I'm running through some of the assets for the game right now, and it's so dope. It's amazing to see just how you've all captured Issa in that digital format. And to hear that the kind of game is going to be around those moments within the game.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well, us, the three of us, me and Latoya and Tara Voltroning together, we need to also shout out to the rest of our amazing team, because this Voltron goes deeper than this. The Voltron is bigger. So we have Ethan Red, who is an incredible technical artist and designer and game developer. He is our lead tech artist and a feature designer as well on the game. So he's just been amazing to work with. And Latoya, if you want to talk about
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Our homegirl, Inango, a.k.a. Samus, y'all, I hope you know who she is.
Yo.
If you don't know who she is, please come get your life.
Yo.
I need you to come and figure this out ASAP. This is the only PhD postdoc / battle rapper / person with a Metroid concept album.
Right.
Me and Samus go super hard. I love her so much. And so right when we started picturing, like, how could this go? I think at one point we went, all right, how are we going to do the mirror raps? How are we going to do this? We went, okay, we need a rapper. And, Mitu had known Samus, and I think you guys had corresponded or something like that. Everybody's friends on Twitter.
Yeah.
At least, right? Everybody's friends on Twitter. Me and Samus have been homegirls for a long time. So I was like, let me call Samus, see if she wants to be down. And she was like, hell yeah, I've never done a game before. So she's in my boat. She's like, never did a game, but you know what? This is the game. If I'm going to do the game, this is the game. So Samus came on board, like, really close to the beginning, right, Mitu? Like, early. Yeah. She was like first and 4.
Like we knew we knew we wanted to involve from the beginning. Ever since we were like, we want to like tackle like rap as a mechanic.
Yes, and the amount of work she has done, like the spreadsheet she has created, sitting there and trying to go through like what makes a rhyme, and then what makes a rhyme playable, and then what makes a rhyme not whack. Because like one of the things that we were looking at too is that there hasn't really been another rap game on the market. There's been games about hip hop and hip hop culture. So again, shout out to Bryna. Def Jam Vendetta is one of my all-time favorite games.
Absolutely.
Love that. But it's not a rap game.
No.
It's a game with rappers, right? So it's like, okay. So I was like, what's the last rap game? Parappa the Rapper?
Rapstar, probably.
Oh, Rapstar. Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, Rapstar. Yeah. That's right. Rapstar. So yeah, okay. So since Parappa, there was Rapstar. But that's a really big gap.
Yeah.
It's not as much. And so we really started thinking about like what that means and what it feels like. The other thing that we were thinking about in the beginning was the concept of self-care apps too. Huh. And like, just those of us, particularly women of color, particularly people of color in general, we just need a break. We just need to be able to step back for a minute, and finding some breathing room, like using this game to create breathing room, was something that was really interesting. So the team that we assembled all kind of resonated with that. So I mean, like, Mitu shouted out Ethan and his amazingness. You could see it in the art. Mm-hmm. Like as soon as you see one of these gorgeous visuals, Ethan's fingerprints are all over it. We have Samus on rhyme. So when you guys get to see, so if you feel like, shout out to my edges, my way from being snatched. That's some Samus stuff. There's stuff for the fellas too. Don't forget, we got Flex. We got all. There's other options. It's just we picked the ones that we felt. So there's tons of stuff with that Samus. We have an amazing lead engineer, Sella Davis, who is coming through and just killing it on the back end, making sure that this game is dope and stable and scopes in a lot of different ways. And we have 2 killer interns that Mitu sourced from NYU. Oh, so man. Like, and they just stepped up in a way that I don't feel right calling them interns no more. I feel like we should like promote them to like fellows or something. Yeah, like this is Geneva and Connor have just been phenomenal, and it's just we're a tiny little team, super scrappy, but everyone understands we're doing this for the culture, we're doing this for representation, we're doing this for a purpose and a reason, and that really I think also animates what's happening. So I think we all have perfectionist tendencies around what we like to put into the world and how we like it to look. So it can be a little bit like strange at times because everybody's like, oh no, but this piece has to be like absolutely, picture perfect. And then the pressure of showing a talent like Issa, right, the work that you have done in her world. Yep. It's just like nerve wracking. But I think that, when we first got the opportunity to, that feeling of this is what we have to do. Yeah. Like it lined up so perfectly. It was such a weird coincidence how all this kind of started. I mean, it's a coincidence through work, I should say. So let's illuminate what that looks like, right? Yeah. This is Mitu's 15 years of experience. This is Tara's 15 years of experience. This is 10 years of being entertainment. Like these things don't magically happen, your first shot out. But everyone had the juice, the clout, the chops. Yeah. And these things came. And when we were there, when it came, we were like, oh, we got to shoot our shot. Absolutely. Like, regardless, we have to do this.
Exactly. And for us, because Insecure, like being our first project, that allows us, it allows us as Glow Up Games to say, like, this is who we care about. Like, this is the audience that we are addressing, which is like people who look like us. And we get to be fortunate enough to tie all of this to a really amazing brand and a really amazing talent like Issa Rae.
Yeah. It was. Go ahead, Latoya.
I was like, I should also say too, like one of the things that we hit early on, which has really started to shape the founding of Glow Up. So initially we were just thinking about games, right? And like fun creative projects could we make together as a studio. Mitu, who's our resident techie, was like, let's talk about tools, let's figure some other stuff out. But we were really talking about properties and what we wanted to do. And when we were pitching Insecure, we realized there was no data about the players that we are. And I think that's something that people outside of the industry don't know. Like, there aren't that many, there's like no data. So the stuff that we take for granted in television, like where I came from, right? Where if you're like, oh, I want to make a girls trip, right? I want to make a movie like that. And these are, you know, Black, like the audience we think is going to be Black women who are 20 to 35, who love Essence Fest. They're reading, you know, Essence Magazine and The Roots Glow Up. They're doing this. They're watching Scandal. They're also in the Shondaland, like whatever. Like that profile of demographic does not exist in gaming. So when I literally went to answer a really basic question in a pitch deck that you would do for any other kind of game, which is, what are these players also playing? Could not answer. Are Black women playing The Walking Dead? Are Black women playing, we playing Breath of the Wild? Are we playing Kim Kardashian's Hollywood? Nobody knows. No one's asked. Nobody cares. So we also started realizing that, like, it wasn't just that these stories weren't being represented. It was that we were being overlooked as a category, and we are already existing players. And I think that's been the other kind of big rub that we've been trying to address with Grow Up Games. Like this idea that women are a new market, that female players are a new market, that players of color are a new market, when we have been here all along and we have not been counted. So that's the other thing I realized. Right when we said that, I'm like, oh yeah, this part.
You have just said everything that I have been fussing at people about for the past God knows how long, and especially this year. I was talking to some folks during a previous show about trying to kind of shift the conversation around, you know, just the visual representation, which is of course important, but again, not looking at us as a block of folks who are already consuming the content and seeing what, you know, that power behind that dollar that we represent is actually in games and what it means to the space. And to hear that that's a foundational part of the conversations that you're having, that just made my heart grow so big, because that's the stuff I feel like is going to move the needle, right? It's like understanding that, like, this profile, this persona has been here and has been here for a long time. And what are you going to do to, you know, talk to the needs of that consumer block? I love that. That just like made me so damn happy, because I know other people are having this conversation. It's just good to hear it. How much did the Insecure, like, folks, you know, have any input on some of the things that you're kind of concepting out and talking about that stuff? Has Issa seen the stuff that you've already put out or put together, and has she had any feedback about, you know, how some of the stuff is kind of coming together?
Latoya, do you want to take that?
I'll happily take that. So, I mean, like I said, number one, shout out to Will again for being an amazing partner. His boss, Jeff, like, they have been so supportive of us. So they did something very unusual for a licensing deal, which they were like, look, Glow Up Games needs to meet Issa Rae Productions.
What?
We just feel like y'all need to be in the same room and figure this out. This never happens. So, of course, where do we go? We got to meet Issa. And we're like, come on, professional face. Bring it in. So we flew out to LA, got our life together. We're like, we'll scream after we meet her. It's all good. And so we had the very first pitch meeting last May, right, Mitu? Was it last
Wow.
May? It was the week of E3, actually. So it was like June.
Yeah, that's right. It was
Wow.
the week of
E3. Yeah. E3 last year. That's when this started.
I can't even remember anything. I'm sorry, like, E3.
Wow.
When was that? You're right. We were out there for E3. We're out there forever. Yes, that's right. Okay, so anyway, the week of E3. So we go into the studio lot over in Manhattan Beach. We're sitting there freaking out. We're like, oh, we're about to go meet everybody from Insecure. Issa's there with her entire entourage. The whole crew. Prentice Penny comes through.
Wow.
We were like, oh God, like, they are taking this so serious. Like, everybody's here. And we just started talking to them, and we were like, this is what it is. And we started talking to her about games. I mean, she asked such great, incisive questions. And it's interesting, like, again, with the demographic of like how we've been trained to even talk or see gamers in the market. Issa's like, I don't really play games, whatever. And as we're talking, she's like, oh, wait, but you know, me and all my friends have this one game, right?
It's like,
that we've all downloaded, that we've played. Yeah, so she plays, and she's talking about it. So it's like, yes, we all play games. Like, just, we can acknowledge that. We can say we love this. But I mean, it was wonderful just being able to talk to a creator at her level, have her get immediately the concept, have her come out feeling this. I mean, she gave us hugs at the end. We were all hyped. We got the handshake in the beginning. We got hugs at the end. She was like, we're in here.
That's when you know. That's when you know.
I love to say, like, she actually spent over her allotted time with us.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Extra time to talk to us. And like we were just like, what? She's not like walking out of this meeting, first available opportunity. She stuck around, she asked super smart questions, and she hugged us all at the end, and that we were just like, oh my god.
Yes.
Man.
We have been touched by Issa Rae. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So so that would have been well enough. So now we're running into development. We're doing all these things. We told her because again, it's Hollywood. She's busy. She's busy. Look at that schedule. She's busy. So we're just like doors open, anything. And they have just been like her team with Benoni, who's our business manager. Like they have just been amazing in terms of trying to make sure that Insecure feels as much a part of the world of the show as we can make it. Like they've looked at concept art, they've looked at scripts, they've given feedback on everything. They are phenomenal.
That's fantastic.
And so, it's been really wonderful. We met with her recently to show her a recent build in her new office that she's building in Inglewood. We went to her coffee shop, the Hill Shop. Like we did a whole Issa Day. And it was just fantastic just to see like how engaged she was. And also like, again, this is something that I think a lot of creators of color don't get to see from their own work. Like Insecure is an amazing brand, an amazing property, just like, Girlfriends before it, just like Living Single before it. Like this is an iconic show.
Yeah.
And the fact that our iconic stuff does not get like the big IP treatment, the comic book adaptation, the all different stuff, the feature films that you would see from an equivalently popular white show, to me has always bothered me, especially as someone who comes from, television Hollywood. For me, I'm like, it's always gatekeepers. Yeah. Right. And the people who have the will to make something happen. Why don't we have an Octavia Butler movie? Right now we have one with Ava. They just placed another one, but the last two didn't do so well, and they couldn't get off the ground. They couldn't get out of development. And so, knowing that, I think made our mission even more urgent, because like this deserves to be a game. We've had so much fun designing it. Like you should just see the like, what are we calling it? Scope creep right now? What are we calling the additional mini games that we want to do that we are not absolutely going to be able to do at launch? But we are having so much fun designing this thing and, designing all the ratchet touches that are going to make it feel like Insecure. Right.
That's the beautiful part. It's like, I think those are the parts that like really, like connect the player to the world, right? It's like the things that they absolutely know and are expecting from the experience that they're going to be in there. It's great to hear that you're incorporating that and making sure that stuff is in there. Mitu, you about to say something?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just going to say that one of the things, it's interesting, again, going back to of like, how did we know we wanted to work on this game? Yeah. Like, how did we know that this was going to be like our flagship title at Glow Up Games? And I think at the end of the day, and I realized I hadn't really framed it this way to myself until this moment, but what makes more sense than propping up the world that's created by another woman of color, right? And like helping to support that. Like that is so foundational to what we're doing. And like, so for that to be our first project, like it just, it speaks to our values so much as a student.
I love that. That was beautiful. I love that because it is something that if you're paying attention, you understand just how much brown women, especially black women, run the world in that way, right? It's like understanding the power and the need to showcase and share those stories and those perspectives are so missed by so many opportunities within the industry. To hear that again, like you're making sure that that's the thing that's paramount is huge, especially with this particular game too. Are you going to be having other folks from the Insecure universe within the game too? Is it going to be something where we get to see the parties, the Lawrences and all the other kinds of folks kind of like around in the space?
Yeah. So the game. Yeah. So the conceit of the game is that you're actually creating your own character who lives in the universe of Insecure. So you're not. It's not that you're playing as Issa. One of the things we said early on in the team is that kind of the thing that's compelling about Insecure isn't that you want to be Issa. It's that you want to be friends with her, that you want to like live through all that messiness, that you want to like be a part of that friend group. And so that's basically what the game is. So you get to define your avatar, you get to define who you are and what you look like and all of these things. And you get to live out that fantasy of being part of the friend group of Issa, Molly, Kelly, and Tiff.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for all my friends once they start to play this game think about all the sloppy text messages they would have gotten from one of the characters at the end. That was like, yo, I did something and I was supposed to do it.
Mention that.
Yeah.
You should mention that.
Funny you should mention
so yeah, a lot of the writing. So I'm leading narrative right now, which is a whole other story. We'll talk about that on another podcast.
Wow.
But,
okay, no doubt.
So one of the first conceits we came up with was group chat. Because it's like, how else do you actually talk to your friends and keep up with all of the ridiculous shit that they do all day long, especially if y'all are at work or something else like that. So really thinking about ways to make group chat pop. We may or may not, we're not going to confirm or deny, a WID mode that might be in production.
Ooh, nice.
We may or may not have that coming in. You may or may not see some cameos from players. So like we also, Prentice being in that first meeting also really helped us to frame the world out, because it is definitely a world shaped and created and kind of run by women of color. The central friendship in the show is Issa and Molly, right? And Issa and Molly and Kelly and Tiffany's friendship. But Lawrence is such a big part of why men identify with the show. Such a huge, the Lawrence hive and the men who feel like they could be Lawrence too. What is going on? So we were like, okay, how does Lawrence appear in this narrative? Where do we bring him? What opportunities does the player have with Lawrence? And then of course, what about Chad?
Right.
Because where there is Lawrence, Chad, Lawrence, Chad. We've had so much fun with Chad in this game, let me tell you. And that's the fun part too, because like there's the show, which is already over the top. Like some of the stuff that happens when I had to go back and like send to the writer's room, like here are some key lines so you understand like how the characters talk and what they frame. And just looking at some of the stuff they say, I was just like, this is so sick. This is worse than anything we came up with. Oh my God.
I mean, and I'm gonna really appreciate the fact, because we've always seen this conversation around men writing women characters in games forever, right? And fucking it up all the time and getting into so many scenarios that make absolutely no sense. It's going to be really refreshing to see your take about how these very two specific characters are going to interact with everybody else, and how the player is going to interact with everyone else within that world, coming from your writing. That's going to be real dope. I'm real excited about that. Because I tell my friends all the time, I was like, most of our friends are women, because women don't bullshit. Dudes bullshit all the time. So I know that I would get a better a better narrative and a better story coming from you all in that respect, translated through those characters as well. So I'm really excited about that stuff. We're running out of time. It has flown by. This hour has flown
There's so
by.
much more. We could talk forever about this.
I mean, we got to have you back on, especially when it launches, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. We'd be happy to come back.
Yes, please. If there are any other things before I let you go that you feel are really super top of mind that you want everybody to know about the game, please, 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 the floor is yours. Let everybody know what those things may be.
Absolutely. So, definitely. If you go to insecure.comupgame.com or glowup.games. I'll start that again. glowup.games/insecure. I need to practice my my commercial voice for that one.
It's still a one.
glowup.games/insecure. You will be able to leave so you can sign up to get text notification when the download link will drop for the game. So you can be first to know when to download it. So please go ahead and follow Glow Up Games on socials as well. We're Glow Up Games on Twitter and glowup.games on Instagram.
Dope. Before I let you go, I just have to say, I am glowing right now because of how excited I am for you three. Like the fact that you have Ethan in the crew and you have Samus in the crew, like you have amassed such a fantastic squad for this particular project, and the fact that you're doing something around a show that I really have come to love and enjoy. I am so pushing for y'all. I'm so pumped for y'all because this is going to be so fantastic. Mitu, Latoya, thank you so much for rocking with me tonight. Again, folks at home, you got to make sure you're paying attention. Go to the site. We're going to throw it up in the chat. It's already in the chat. Thank you. Mad love to TD out in the chat doing the work. Make sure you go sign up so that you know when things go live. Please, again, whenever you have time to come back, you have a place here in Chicago.
us.
Thank
It's been
you.
so much fun.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody in Chicago, we are getting up out of here for episode 327 again. The dopeness is flowing throughout all these wonderful ladies, and this is going to be a fantastic, fantastic game. I am just waiting for Lawrence Hive to lose their goddamn minds up in here once everything goes out into the world. I'm so excited for that because they deserve everything they get, because that man's trifling and he doesn't know what he's doing. I said it online. I said it loud and proud. Damn it.
He said, I said it and I said it.
I said it and I said it. That man trifling. Anyway, massive love to you all. Make sure you come and follow us here. Thursday nights is when we usually record, 7 p.m. PST. Make sure you come through. Make sure you're supporting the Patreon. That will go live in a couple of months after all this coronavirus madness hopefully subsides and goes away. But again, support dope people making fantastic work like this. Support people who are making new strides and building new platforms for people to survive and people to make the games that they want to make. So until then, we'll see you all next week, and we say peace.